Lathan, you guys feel outnumbered tonight? Do you feel outnumbered on this? All right, with the time being 6:31, I will commence this evening's meeting and begin with our acknowledgement of country. Council acknowledges that we meet on the traditional country of the Paramankangana people. We pay our respects to ancestors and elders past and present as the custodians of this ancient beautiful land. Together we will care for this place for the generations to come, and in this context the decisions we make should be guided by the principle that nothing we do should decrease our children's ability to live on this land. We do have 3 apologies this evening. Councillor Trescothick, Councillor Cheetah and Councillor Huckster. I'm not aware of any requests for leave of absence.
Oh, sorry.
You do?
Yes, I have.
Can you, have you circulated that or no? What are the dates?
24th of June to the 13th of July, during the school holiday.
And actually, I've got one too when I think about it.
We'll just deal with this one. Okay, so would someone like to move Councillor Mudge, and the seconder, Councillor Boyd. All those in favour indicate. Those carried unanimously. And then Councillor Parkin, you indicated you also have a request?
Yes, from the 11th to the 14th of August.
How are you here with you?
I wish, unfortunately.
Someone like to move something? Councillor Osserstock, and a seconder. Councillor McDonald. All those in favour indicate. That's also carried unanimously. Do we have any other requests for a leave of absence? No? Minutes of the previous meeting, we have the first on the ordinary council meeting on the 9th of June. Councillor Herman. To be adopted as circulated. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Badago. All those in favour indicate. It's carried unanimously. We also have the special council meeting on the 9th. So I'd like to move to receive and note those as a correct record. Councillor Woolcock. And the seconder. Councillor McDonald. All those in favour indicate. That is carried unanimously. Do we have any conflicts of interest for this evening? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
With item 12.2, we'll have funding agreement. I'm a volunteer at that. Just a general update.
Do you have any other conflicts of interest? Okay, we'll move on to opening remarks. I'd just like to welcome everyone who decided to come along this evening to participate in our council meeting. Welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to be here. And just because we don't have the individual microphones, the administration have asked if we could project our voices a little bit so it can be picked up for the recording that we'll place online of the meeting itself. The only other point I'll make is a reminder we have our community forum at Mylor next Monday. Hope to see you and lots of the community there. Tuesday. Thank you. Tuesday. No questions adjourned, no questions lying on the table. We also have no petitions or deputations. Now we do have a public forum. There's sort of 2 aspects to the public forum tonight. The first in relation to the budget itself. It's an opportunity for people to come to present at that, and then our normal public forum where we have for 10 minutes, including questions. Can I just get an indication from the chamber who would like to speak specifically in relation to the budget? Okay, thanks. Okay, Mr. Tate, if you'd like to come forward. So, taking a seat here, and we'll allow up to 5 minutes for each individual to speak to the budget.
Thanks, Nathan, and thanks, elected members and executive. So, thanks for having me here tonight. My name is Joel Taggart from Gummaraka. My main concern with the annual budget process has been the 7.6% proposed rate increase. I just don't think that it's something that the community, particularly the Northern Adelaide Hills, can afford at this time in the cost of living crisis. Obviously, there's the inflationary component, 4.6%, but the rest of it is really above and beyond what locals can afford. And I feel the council is a little bit out of touch operating such a high rate rise. In terms of our local community, our local area, people are concerned about things such as excessive legal expenditure. The council's had 1.5 million over 24 months. And in terms of some of the proposed capital expenditure, a lot of it seems to be in the central or southern areas of the council area. The only real capex proposed in the northern Adelaide Hills, in the sort of housing through the Burwood corridor, is swims or community wastewater management system upgrades and a depot upgrade to the gate at Gummaraka. There's no real things like footpaths, curbing, anything major, anything to do with parks or playgrounds. In terms of the 675k for the Amy Gillette extension or bypass at Woodside, that does seem like an excessive amount, given that it's a time of financial constraint for the community, and council should reflect that. So I'm asking whether council can refine that cost, maybe bring it down through using an undersealed surface and doing less earthwork, just making more of a basic bypass if it does go ahead. In terms of footpaths, 400k footpaths, I'm concerned that the 8 listed locations are all segregated, also are all around individual sites at Heathrow High School, Lopefall and Aldgate Primary School, so the council isn't really spreading the love in terms of footpaths across the council area. I note that 500k was originally proposed for a footpath budget in the first workshop, and that got knocked down to 400,000. So I think it's more important than ever to spread the footpath upgrade budget around the council area. I see no reason why it should be focused on 3 little locations, particularly in the case of Lopefall. That upgrade is going to be having a footpath on both sides of a road, which is above the service standard that pretty much any council in the state normally dictates, so it's a bit strange, and there's obviously no justification for it in the ADP, or when I asked a question on the website, the justification is pretty minimal. Some other concerns I have in terms of governance, 2.3 million is allocated to governance, but at the same time council has 43 of the 83 policies past their expiry date. So I'm just concerned whether council is getting value for money on that 2.3 million, when over half of council policies are outdated, which is a concern. Also, the potential loss of Woodford not being modelled financially seems a big risk. If Woodford does go to Campbelltown Council, that's a huge rate base the council loses and will likely impact on future rates. Also, in terms of fabric, that's another area of concern. That 860k is listed as a proposed budget. That's on top of 1.06 million in the current financial year. And while it's good to foster the arts and tourism in the area, it seems a little bit strange that the community centres, including the hut, get a total of less than 500,000 a year. So Fabric and Leaf has doubled the budget of the community centres, and as a community member, I prefer the money poured into the community centres, apply things like cheap lunches, movie days, bus rides for elderly, things like that. And then I guess in terms of some of the other ideas I have is trying to think outside the square, so council trying to make the budget stretch a bit further, use assets to generate income. I think some councils have mentioned that in previous meetings, but also do things such as try and help local business and help tourism as a council rather than related to tourism, even the council is a member of that body. So just doing things like promotional maps or suggested routes for people to travel through the hills, upgrading some of the unsealed road network to create trails for people to walk around, particularly in the north where we have very limited trails. And also, I think that footpaths are a big thing. Like I recently appeared in the Courier newspaper that the council really does need a footpath strategy because footpaths are just getting approved without any strategic oversight. And last of all, in terms of parks and playgrounds, again, there's no real strategy as far as I can tell, with no real priority list. So parks such as Federation Park in Gummaraka have a playground that's around 20 years old, and with the current budget situation won't be replaced in the very near future from what I can tell. So again, I'd urge council to try and start really shaping up some of this policy and strategic frameworks to try and get the best bang for the buck, while at the same time not trying to raise the rates too high beyond what the locals can afford.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I do have time for a question if any local member would like to ask Mr. Craig a question. Yes, Councillor Hammond.
Yeah. Be interested, Joel, you got any ideas about raising, apart from rates, of raising extra revenue?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think things like advertising, to certain degrees, the council owns a lot of assets. You can sort of have advertising arrangements that often passive income. Obviously, you don't see have flashing billboards, but there might be placed in space that council do own that could have some form of advertising. Even things like on the inside of toilets, having an advert for various things, and some commercial premises do that. Very small income, but it all helps.
So you wouldn't object to having Hungry Jack's notice on your rate notice?
Oh, they can, yeah, a bit of paper, why not? Have a flyer instead in there to promote something, why not?
Or you could get $1 or two?
But also, looking outside the square and renting council space to commercial businesses. If there's spare room at Gumbaraka Depot, there might be an earth moving firm that might just pay 20 grand a year to put 5 trucks there or something. Thinking outside the square.
Thank you for coming on to share your thoughts tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, mate.
Mr. Cornish, you'd like to come forward?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not huge jumping with the idea we've got here before. Got to stand in the right spot. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Michael Cornish. I live in Bridgewater. A few affiliations, merely just to establish a bit of credibility on the topic I'm talking about, rather than any sense of self-bravado. So my day job is I work as the head of policy and advocacy for Australia's Peak Body for Land Conservation. I'm not here in that capacity. I also sit on the Native Vegetation Council in South Australia. I'm not here in that capacity. I'm actually here just to very specifically talk on the revenue side. I think there's an opportunity that the council could consider for the budget, something that increases money coming in, which, given the financial situation facing the council, which I'm very sympathetic towards. I'm not someone who likes to bash the council, as it were. In the past life, I worked hard alongside Rebecca Shark, who I used to work for, trying to advocate for supplementary road funding, which we know is exceptionally important. So I have a lot of sympathy for a council such as Yellow Hills, which has huge amounts of roads and huge amounts of assets to maintain, lots of challenges compared to just an ordinary urban council. In any case, I wanted to highlight with you, you'd all be aware that the Lake Hills Council's biodiversity team was successful in securing a $1.97 million grant for the restoration of Cox's Creek, Bridgewater, where I live. That's an exceptional outcome, and it is, in my view, I guess, the tip of the iceberg. I think there is, with a small amount of investment, such as a 0.2, maybe 0.4 FTE investment in the biodiversity team, in grant writing in particular, an opportunity to secure additional funds to bring in project money to the council. I know that with the limited resources that they do currently have, they've been not only successful at securing that almost $2 million project, but also they've been successful at securing heritage agreement incentive grants and a range of other smaller grants. But, they're a small team, they're a very effective team from what I can tell. I don't interact with them that regularly, but I do interact with them irregularly. From what I can tell, though, they have, with a dedicated resource that focus on grant writing 1 or 2 days a week, as I say, they have the potential to at the very least, pay back the funding that that grant writing resource would give, as well as the opportunity, obviously, to deliver above and beyond that. So I would, I'm sure there's other elements of the council's work where a little bit of additional grant writing capacity could pay dividends. I don't pretend to be an expert in any other field other than one I work in at the moment, but certainly in the environment space, and the reason I mentioned my affiliations beforehand is to let you know that I'm certainly aware of what funding is out there. I don't want to make it sound like there's rivers of gold, but there's certainly some creeks of gold, and I think that, that small amount of investment would go a long way. And that's really all I wanted to say, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks. Do any councillors have a question for Mr. Cornish? Yes, Councillor Grant and Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Cornish, for coming in. And I guess, and I like the gist of your idea here, and the question is, would such funding towards a part FTE achieve, and clearly the leverage is there to get larger grants, but the essential thing is, would it be funding works that the council is normally within its remit, rather than outside or extra work?
I think it would be both, right? So, for example, heritage agreement incentive grants, I don't want to pretend they're huge grants, but that's for managing council-owned and operated land, right? That's land that the council has to be stewarding in some way, shape or form already. Now, it might be above and beyond what they have capacity to do, so there's a sense of, well, it's additional, But as we know, that might be catching up on getting rid of the weeds and things, or whatever it might be, that is work that really, in an ideal work, would be done anyway and relieves pressure off of adjacent landholders. The Cox's Creek project, almost $2 million, is a good example where it is both. There's council land amongst all the landholders up and down Cox's Creek. That again, requires stewardship and making sure that it's not creating pressure on adjacent landholders and so on. We also know that there's obviously visitation benefits around tourism and all the rest in terms of why people want to come up to the hills. And I know that in particular is a popular corridor for visitors from down the hill, which brings business obviously into the Bridgewater community. So it's a mixture, but some of that, some of that work is on privately managed land. For example, like it's on pub land, extends up into into the national park and so on. Like, I don't want to pretend like all that money is purely for council benefit, it's for community benefit. So, yeah.
Councillor Parker?
Yeah, look, I just love the whole concept of creeks of gold. That's just fantastic.
Good. Unfortunately, people do fossick there for gold, so.
So obviously your background is in biodiversity, so you are aware of like pockets of funding within your space, but the idea is a good one. And so are you envisaging that this person would only undertake grant writing for sort of environmental or other things like tourism, regional development?
Yeah, I mean, look, it is possible you could get a generalist grant writer to do more of this stuff, but I think it's better to have someone who knows the field they're in. So in the same way that on the infrastructure side, you probably don't want an ecologist writing stuff for infrastructure, right? But vice versa. I mean, writing well is a different skill to writing well about a particular topic.
Yeah.
So I think there are probably, again, not as across other elements of the council's work like infrastructure, but from my limited conversations, I think there could be opportunities to build capacity there as well. I'd probably not suggest centralising it, but I imagine that the council could give you some advice. So, the executive could give you some advice as to what might work. I'd also probably suggest that, you don't need to make it an ongoing position forever. You could try it. You could say, well, let's give them a good 2-year stint at 2 days a week and see if they can pay their, first thing is they're going to pay their own wage back, obviously, and, and on cost, obviously, and then can they deliver additional funding above and beyond that? And you assess it. You go, okay, 2 years of investment, as long as you get somebody who's halfway decent, of course. Always depends on the talent you recruit, and then assess it and see if it worked. And you could do, depending, you could try that in a few different areas, but also I'm here about environment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cornish. Okay, one very quick question.
Very quick question, both for Joel and Mr. Cornish. I think you might both have to consider running for council because you're really lovely stuff. So that's my question to you, to consider.
Right, surely there's lots of good people on council already. That's not a joke. I'm not trying to make it. Yeah. Oh no, that was it. Oh, okay. All right. Maybe Joel will put his hand up. No worries. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. Mr. Cutchinson, if you'd like to come forward. Great.
First of all, I'll be reading,
Sure.
because I haven't got a chance to finish it off there before I came from there. So you'll forgive me for reading it, okay? But first of all, to be transparent in front of you all, I qualified that the budget was only sent to me on the 2nd of June, and I've only had a short time to go through it. But briefly, I'll go through it with you. My name's Mark Cuthbertson. I was born in Taringi, and you probably all don't know where Taringi is. You only know when you send out your rates notice to me. But that's where I live. It's just down the road here, fellas.
Yes, I'm aware.
And we're all aware where it is.
You sure? You sure? Okay. I haven't seen any council work down there. My parents
Put in a request.
The council stop this.
Sorry, pardon you interrupting me, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Speaking, guys. Yeah, okay.
Speak up.
My parents lived in Taringi. My grandparents owned the majority of Taringi, and my great-great-grandmother and father worked in Northern Summit, so you know, we've got a long connection with it. The land that I live on was originally owned by my grandfather. I've got a lot of children, ranging from 50 to 7, and my wife's intention and mine is to hand it on to them. So we're very interested in intergenerational wealth, and I don't want to be eroded by council debts being left for them to repay. I intend to stand for the upcoming council in my campaign, and amongst other things I'll be pointing out the financial issues facing the council, and I'll be pointing at the councillors and the mayor and the deputy mayor and the CEO that contributed to the issues and accepted the budget. I will also draw the residents to the full budgeting process and allocate in the budget. I'm only going to talk about 4 things. I said there's a lot more than that. I reject the council's 7.6% increase, and that equates to approximately $223 for the increase for an average value residency property. You all know the cost of living crisis. The Australian Senate established the Select Committee on the 22nd of September 2022. However, the Bureau of Statistics was taken prior to that date in August 2021. According to the Bureau of Statistics, so these are fairly old and they would have been deteriorated since then. Approximately 27.5% of the Adelaide Hills population falls in the broad category of retired and senior age bracket, accounting for 11,231. In the Adelaide Hills Council, 16.5% back in when the census was, are classified as low income, earning less than $800 a week, which is notably lower than the Greater Adelaide average of 23.5. So we're sitting here with a lot of people suffering, and in addition to that, the interest rates have gone up since that time, so anybody on a mortgage would be suffering as well. So I say that those people need to be considered as well. As I said, I was only going to draw you. I'm very glad that Mr. Taggart spoke first, because he demonstrated a couple of other issues and I honestly don't have the time, but Mr. Taggart covered a few issues that are also worthy of good mention. Now, if I could clearly demonstrate to you that the proposed budget is an unsustainable when the council reject the budget. And I suggest to you, right, the method is, you look at the profit and loss statement, then you look at the EBITDA. I'll explain EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation and amortisation. You look at the borrowings, and both the current and non-current, and if they and then you work out the you go to the, I've got the audited financials as at 30th of June 2025. However, I do note that if you want to find that on the council's website, good luck to you, because it takes you a long time. And I think that's something that should be more available to the public. So if we take the current debts that we've currently got, you've got showing on those figures there, it's 19.3 million, 19.3, I'm talking thousands, 19.3, and it's going to go up to 37.2 next year. And with regard to the interest rate on future borrowings, if you have an asset, then you should clear that asset between the time you purchase it and the time if you have a car, when that car is disposed of, there should be no principal or interest remaining. You shouldn't have interest remaining. or otherwise you're leaving that interest for somebody else to repay. And so the principal's got to be fully cleared as well.
Just letting you know you've had your 5 minutes, but I'll give you another minute or so to wrap up.
I can do this two ways. I can go to the I always be polite, no, I can show straight. Okay. Without being provided the current 10-year, knowing what your loans are, APRA, I'll read very quickly and try to cover it very quickly. APRA sets that you should set above 3% above your current interest rate when you're setting your ability to repay. And if we got now, if we go to your particular one, in 2025 you had an EBITDA of 14,849,000, and in 2027 of 13,005,000. If you go back and yet you add on the capital expenditure that you've outlined in there and take it off from those figures, and come up to in 2025 of 749,000. That's it. And if you go on to the capital expenditure shown in there, you're minus 1,095. Then if you look at your borrowing, so you have no ability, you're struggling even to pay interest on those figures there. On the figures that you've provided me, and I'm only using your figures, you're struggling to pay interest. If you pick, I don't know what your interest rate, but let's pick it at 8%, and let's pick it at 8%. You can have, on 2025, you'd have a negative repayment capacity of 2,061,000. Go across and do the same on the other one, and you'd have a negative 6 million on the 30th of June 2027. You have 6.511 million. So a negative. So no ability to repay is demonstrated in those figures. So if you move forward from that, if you go through to the past financials and compare projections, you'll notice that there's in the past five years, including the projection that's coming up, 4 of them are in deficit, only 1 showing profit. So that demonstrates that there's an inability to monitor the budget, inability to control the budget, and it also demonstrates that the budgets were poorly prepared. The draft annual business plan, page 20, indicates an income of in 26-27. There's only 5 numbers you add up on that page, and you outline 900,000. So that's a pretty poor effort to send that out to the public. You only add up 5 numbers, and you're out by 900,000.
You can just wrap it up now, thanks. What you can do though also is, if you'd like to send that documentation to us, and also
okay, I'll go through. You've made a heap of other adding up mistakes, and you've quoted
and please do send it through.
Different incomes and expenditure. Your repairs and maintenance is if I go down to my last page there, you increase the don't go down to your material expenses. In that period of time, you increased your employment costs by 23 between 2023-24 to 2026-27. You increased your employment costs by 23.98%, whereas in the same period of costs, you've only increased your material contracts and other expenses by 7.7%. So obviously you're employing a lot of people, too many up there, for that difference to occur. And in addition to that, if you go through from 24 through, you've got a decrease in expenditure on material and maintenance the following that year all the way through. And also the errors that are showing in the preparation of the budget are just numerous.
Again, I appreciate you coming along, and if you'd like to circulate that to us, either via email or just make it as part of your submission, we'd appreciate that. So, thank you again for taking the time to come along.
I didn't get to cover 2 or 3 points there, and I'm disappointed that you didn't give me the time to cover them. because it would have been to your advantage if you'd listened.
As I said, if you'd like to, and I'm happy to take
No,
a
no,
phone call and chat about it after the meeting.
You made it clear to me that you didn't really want to hear the other points, and that's
Excuse
disappointing.
me, I have just said I am more than happy to have a conversation with you offline and listen to everything you'd like to say.
And all the other councillors that wouldn't be present at that conversation.
Well, you're also welcome to circulate what you've got in your hand to elected members should you wish to, so they can consider it as part of their budget deliberations. Thank you. And there was a fourth hand that I can't, yeah, Mr. Bennett, if you'd like to come forward and speak, thanks.
Sorry, excuse me. Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Councillors, there you go. I did have a list of 20 questions I'd like to ask, but because of the time and the restraint, I'll just drop it down to 2. The first, these are most important to me anyway. The first one is regarding the boundary reform. And how much rate money do you currently collect from the Woodford and the Ross River? And what does the deficit look like if that money disappears? And you're asking us to accept a 7.6% rate rise and $37 million in debt without telling us the answers to that question.
Yeah.
So we have no idea from what I've seen so far, I've seen no impact on how that would affect the budget if those 2 suburbs get moved over to a different council. Do we have a rough idea on figures, or you can no, you don't have? So I just want to make all right, that's all right, that's unfortunate, because you'd think you'd have that in sort of consideration on the budget. And the second one is that currently 91% of our $37 million debt is at a variable interest rate. And even if we're faced with a moderate interest rate rise of 1.5%, that'll add an extra $500,000 to our operating costs for the year for our finances. So I haven't seen anywhere where you've allocated any possible rise in interest rate and within the budget. And so you'd be going from 1.5 million to almost 2 million just to cover our debt for the forthcoming year. That's all. So is that included anywhere in the figures? Across the finances?
The debt level varies significantly throughout the year.
Yep.
Which is one of the reasons why we keep a lot on variable. But it also means if you calculate the impact, you may be using effectively the wrong number to calculate the impact of a rising rate, because most of the year the debt's a lot lower. The number we put in is close to the peak rate for the peak level of debt for the year.
For the year though, wouldn't I say? We do get consecutive rate rises over the coming 6 months, which we're lucky we didn't just have one. It could balloon out rapidly, though, couldn't it? Above what you predict.
It can increase, yeah. I mean, but it's not a massive risk.
Well, it's still a risk. There's still an unbudgeted risk that we have against a budget that's so tight, and you've overspent in a lot of areas, and it's going to, from my perspective, it's going to be hard to sort of be able to maintain the level of debt we have without increasing and actually coming on your predictions. So that's two of the questions I have. I do have more, but due to the time factor, I'll let them go for now, but I will contact you further at the next sort of forums we have, and just thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah, there is
Well,
time.
I mean,
Councillor
how
Walker.
much time is he allocated?
You would have...
Oh no, that's okay. I've got 2
If I would
minutes.
like to.
I can pass it all around, but I've done the whole document just on the points that, from my perspective, that I think have been overlooked and not really taken seriously when they're forecasting their budget. So.
Again, I appreciate if you'd submit that as part of it, but if you've got time for an additional question if you'd like.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Okay.
There's a lot in here, so I'll start with the 2 big ones for a minute, the 2 big dollar value ones from my perspective.
All right.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms Green, if you'd like to come forward.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Linda Green, I live at Mount Torrance. 7.6% is too high in a cost of living crisis. Yes, everything's gone up. CPI is meant to cover this. Not everyone's wages have gone up as much as CPI. People living off the land wouldn't have experienced this increase. Yet in a climate emergency, Council seeks to increase rates by 165% of CPI. The compound effect of rate rises above CPI every year has driven up what an increase of 7.6% means. So on average, a homeowner will pay $223 to $233 per year extra. Compared to in 2025-26, a rate increase of 6.2% meant an average of $161 per homeowner. It's a compound effect that contributes to making this significant. At this time, it's too much. I support reducing new projects, deferring them another year, or alternatively, altering the project as was suggested recently by some residents of lowering the speed limit on back streets where there is no footpath. Working together can make results. Yes, that can result in the cost going up and not meeting everyone's expectations. However, if we go ahead with this budget increase in interest due to overall borrowings increases grow significantly to a point where future people are paying for what we do today. And with existing projects, look for saving. Yes, that's not easy, but that's reality. Extra dollars for fabric may need to be deferred or at least lowered. A great project, which many of you know I support, but we need to work to bring this budget and future ones back into balance. Details I couldn't see in the budget included what significant renewal works, which are not in asset management plan, are included. Efficiencies using AI, I couldn't see any initiatives like that. Limiting legal spend, yes, it's been reduced, but it's still too high. We need to bring it down. We need to resolve things before we go to get legal advice. No initiatives for retaining employees in a time that keeping skilled people is becoming harder. We need to retain our people. No planning for renewal of playgrounds, especially the big ones at Gumrack or Woodside. I'm not asking for them in today's budget, not this year's budget coming, but I am asking that they are envisaged, they need to be renewed. Can't dodge it. I acknowledge the work that goes into budget preparation. I'm looking for balancing the budget, looking for the detail in initiatives proposed, and looking for reasonable increases in rates so we can all afford to live here. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any elected member have a question? There's still a couple of minutes for Councillor Green. Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Can you just repeat the part about the pass that you said? Backwards?
Oh yes, so there was a, yes certainly. Altering the project as was suggested recently by some residents of lowering the speed limit on back streets where there is no footpath. I believe there was a person from Allboat suggested the other night to council.
Thank you.
Yes.
Could I ask
So
that you also, the people that did submit, make a presentation, submit it to us, so that we've got the details of those ideas and initiatives as well? That'd be great.
No worries, thank you.
Thank you very much. And we do have another resident, Ms. Weiss. Is it Weiss? Apologies if I pronounced that wrong. If you'd like, Weiss, thanks. If you'd like to come forward and share your
Hello
thoughts.
everyone. There was a treacherous drive coming here from Mount Torrens,
It is.
especially this time of night. Wouldn't Stirling be better, number one?
Stirling Chambers is currently, they had a flooding event and they're currently replacing the floor, so it's unavailable. So we had our last council meeting at Woodside and this one here tonight.
Well, I know a lot of people that would have liked to have come here tonight, but they didn't because of the drive to get here. And I understand fully. Well, number one, I definitely object to the 7.6% in the council rates. I've lived in Adelaide Hills for 21 years, in Mount Torrens on Tuck Street, and I don't see anything happening around my area. I have sent emails with the Tuck Street that goes down onto Coringa Road, on Coringa Valley Road, to come and clear out the front of the property to get rid of the invasive weeds for about 2 years now. Nothing has happened. I think maybe you got one of your subcontractors which cost you a shitload of money.
We could just use appropriate language.
Cost you a lot of money. And I don't think they got out of the car because it was just yellow about a foot off the bitumen. And that foot off the bitumen is actually covered with leaf and litter. I don't know where the emails are going to. I've also rang the council office. They put through emails for me as well. And nothing has been done. And you know what? I'm sick of having to pay these rates and I'm out the front of my property having to do the work. I originate from Barossa Valley. I've worked on the council years ago. And we did stuff. You know, we cleaned gutters and everything. I don't see anything happening. Even when I go through Woodside, you want to have these invasive trees that you've got for the beautiful autumn that drops the leaves, but you're not clearing your gutters out, and that's what's causing a huge flooding of our roads. So that's one of the concerns. I've got many other concerns, but another one is when I got to read through the draft annual business plan. The observation, project management and contingency are grouped as a 1.2 mil. Why are the two items grouped? Who can help me with that?
Just for convenience, I'm not sure there's...
Convenience. That's a lot of money for me. It's convenience. It's got to pay rates.
Yeah, they're two figures that are managed centrally, and that's why they're put together.
No, well...
They can be split out.
So, your wage would be pretty high, wouldn't it?
If we can not...
Compared to what the councillors are getting. No, I've got a right to
No,
speak
excuse me,
here.
if I can just address you for a second, and then I'll allow you to continue to speak.
I'm paying your wage. We're all paying your wage here, right
Can I just
now.
finish, thanks? And then I'll allow you to finish. So when you address the chamber and the council, it's important that you don't direct criticism at an individual.
I'm not directing criticism.
So,
I'm asking
you're
as
welcome to
a ratepayer who pays your wage, and that's why you're sitting here today, correct? And on overtime. You know, you should be able to tell me straight away what's going on here with the contingency and project management and why these two items are grouped. 1.2 mil, I wouldn't even make that in my lifespan.
We can take the notice on notice and we can distribute the information.
Well, that's why I'm sitting here today, so you can answer this question. I mean, you wrote this out.
My
The
understanding...
next one as well is...
Sorry, if I could just provide an
Is it
chance
based
to answer
on
your...
a simple 10%
Excuse
and
me.
total budget, or based on this year's performance against budget?
Mayor, I've got a formal motion.
Yeah?
My formal motion is that the council moves to the next item of business on the agenda.
I would, whilst I understand what you're saying, I'd like you to consider that this is an opportunity for our residents to speak to us about the budget, and whilst I know there's an elevated level
If you
of...
wish me to withdraw, I'll withdraw.
I think in the interest of allowing our residents to express their maybe frustrations and concern, I think that might be best. I understand your intent, but I think it's important for us to listen to the community. But I will ask if you could just keep your questions calm and respectful and give people an opportunity to respond. So, for example, when I tried to speak, you spoke over me. We would like to hear you, but I would like that to occur in a respectful...
Okay, so that question couldn't be answered. So why are the two items grouped as question number 2?
Yeah, so
With the project management.
Just governance just explained to me an important point that you're welcome to ask any questions, but you ask through me and then I'll direct it to the relevant person. Thanks.
I just asked him.
So if you could just ask it again, because I was, governance was speaking to me at the time.
Alright, why are the two items grouped?
Ms. Lewis, would you like to just clarify? My understanding is that they're... I'll let you answer it.
They're both overhead costs which aren't directly applied to individual projects. So the contingency it's almost like a portfolio. We look at the number of projects and estimate a contingency across the whole portfolio of projects. The project management costs are similarly, it's an assessment. We know the number of managers we have, we expect to be delivering capital projects. So we take the grouping of them and we don't allocate them individually to projects. If we allocate contingency to every project, you generally wind up with a higher number. And some of the project management costs we know approximately what the total costs are likely to be. So we take, they're both similar to overhead costs, and the contingency we hope not to even incur, but it's held at a different level to the individual projects. So those will probably sit with the director as their budget, rather than being with the individual project managers who will be running the individual projects, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They can be split out.
Thanks.
Is it based on a simple 10% of the total budget or based on this year's performance against the budget?
Mr. Lewis? Are you able to answer that?
Well, there are two different things. Project management costs are based on an assessment of what project managers' time will be spent on these projects, which we derive from the assessment of the project managers who are looking at that portfolio of projects. The contingency will depend on individual projects. For routine projects that we run every year, like a road sealing program, there will be a low level of contingency. For new or unusual projects, there will be a high level of contingency. So I wouldn't say there'll be a set percentage. There will be.
Thanks.
So will this be explained, and will we be seeing what the contingency is when it ever happens?
I guess.
So, I mean, contingency is generally what would happen if a project is over budget, then that's normally identified through the budget review process.
Correct.
But if we're taking that out of contingency, then it won't hit the bottom line, we'll allocate contingency to it. So that is through the normal budget review processes.
Yeah.
How is this year's capital renewal expenditure tracking against the budget?
That's probably outside the scope of. So the purpose of this setting is for you to provide feedback for the next financial year. So if we can just keep our questions and commentary in relation to what's currently up.
I'm referring to the annual business plan.
You would ask me a question
so
about. You're asking a question about this financial year, though. We do provide quarterly updates that are publicly available in terms of, so every quarter there is, as part of that, it shows how the completion rates of different projects are tracking relative to what was put into the budget.
So do you think an underspend will be expected?
I couldn't answer that off the top of my head.
What about last year?
Sorry, again, that's outside the scope of what we're here for at the moment. And I have been quite lenient with time, but if there's any other particular big points you'd like to make.
So will the allocated contingency be spent on unplanned projects or carried forward?
So you.
Because I don't see anything about the contingency from last year.
So you were saying if there's leftover contingency from this financial year, would it be carried forward into next financial year?
Yeah, to next year. Because last year's carried forward to this year. So where did it go?
So in previous years, we've allocated contingency at the project level. And this is, the way we've changed it this year is actually, we believe it's a more efficient and effective way, and it gives greater degree of control to the director in managing the budgets.
Well, that didn't really explain much at all. I expect a bit more than that.
Again.
Because the contingency, a word that you put in here, to me it just looks like you're hiding some of the funds that could be carried forward.
If we could just wrap it up, thanks. I think
well, that was the last question anyway.
Okay. Thank you. I do appreciate you coming along to share your thoughts. Was there anyone who wanted to speak regarding the budget who did not previously indicate? Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to what is, I guess, a normal public forum where there's up to 10 minutes for elected members to speak about other matters. Is anyone wishing to speak in the public forum tonight? Mr. Wilkinson and Mr. Tate. Mr. Wilkinson, if you'd like to come forward. So you have up to a maximum of 5 minutes each.
What was that?
You have up to a maximum of 5 minutes each.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for your time. My name is Jason Wilkinson. I've lived in Gummaraka my whole life. Last meeting I sat and listened. In that meeting I heard several things. As a body, you dismissed the idea to engage in refinancing Australia Day and re-supporting it.
Just if I could just address that, it was not that the elected body was not, I guess, open to that, but within the framework of the legislation, that motion could not be debated or considered at that particular meeting, but as you know, there's an item on the agenda tonight.
I understand that. It's the impression I received from that.
Okay, sure.
You talked about wanting to alienate the largest sponsor of the largest event in the Adelaide Hills. That's a large injection of finances for the area. You talked about raising rates to 7.6% to set a precedent. Considering this, the council is meant to represent the community of the greater Adelaide Hills. At this point in time, I don't really feel represented by the people in this room. Due to this, I'm going to be running for Adelaide Hills Council in the next election because I want to see a broader representation within this room. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Appreciate you sharing your thoughts. Mr. Tate? Oh, sorry. Does anyone have a question? Apologies for Mr. Wilkinson. No. Thanks.
Good evening all. As before I do wish to record this what I have to say. You did say I had 5 minutes?
Yes, you've got 5 minutes.
Maybe you could make it 6 because he only talked for 2. Just hold on. Time me when I'll tell you when.
I'll let you know when there's a minute to go.
Thank you. Okay. I think you all know who I am, but I will say again, John Tate from Burton, an Adelaide Hills Council ratepayer. I speak on behalf of the Adelaide Hills Council Action Group. I refer to and read just a few lines, paragraphs from the 23 pages of your report on the agenda. That's them that I've got. You see, I've only got 5.5 minutes. I've had to be very careful about the numbers that I talk about, and I've had to knock some off. And it's the subject is reinstatement of Australia Day citizenship and award ceremonies. And I just want all councillors to keep in mind that there were 9 out of the 12 that voted to cancel Australia Day on 25th of July. It is noted that the resolution 15923 did not resolve to not celebrate Australia Day on 26th of January as the date on which Australia Day is celebrated is determined by the federal government. Can one of the 7 remaining councillors, after I finish speaking, tell me why hasn't council celebrated Australia Day on any day over the last 3 years? 2. I've earmarked everything as I go. On this page it says targeted, by the way, this is from the council, not me, this is the report. Targeted stakeholder engagement particularly including the Adelaide Hills Reconciliation Group. What is that? Community groups that currently hold community celebrations on Australia Day, such as Gamaraka, Woodside, Stirling, Nareva. Want to hold that up? Is it upside down? I need you to understand that. I'll tell you why. Are all stakeholders, because we're ratepayers, and it appears that council has rejected or not considered all stakeholders in the movement involvement. Next page, Objective 05, we are accountable, informed to make decisions in the best interest of the whole community. No, you don't. You refused to undertake a community consultation. Another dot point, council has a commitment to reconciliation. Well, my belief is that that's not true what the council say, because I believe reconciliation has to involve 2 people or 3 people. Can't be reconciliation on just one side. 5th point, a decision not to undertake further community consultation or to engage a specialist contractor to undertake further consultation will assist in mitigating the risk of providing a platform for racism. Let me talk about racism for a minute. That's rubbish. We carried out our own very ethical public consultation combined with a petition and obtained 1,934 signatures from 30 different townships, which resulted in a staggering 96% of all ratepayers were in favour of celebrating Australia Day on the 26th day of January, and only 4% agreed with council. Do you know a number of people did this and not one person brought up racism at all? So what council was saying is not true. And I basically finish on this point. By the way, that's the petition. If anyone wants to read it afterwards with the letter, I finish on this point. I conclude by saying this. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples have 10 separate days and a whole week called NAIDOC Day of celebration throughout the year. And I'm serious about this. If they choose to do so on any of these days or week to celebrate, I'm talking about celebrating Australia Day, and give out citizenships and civic awards on these days, and if I was invited, I would attend. Maybe I might have to take the shirt off, but I'll go there. And I finish up by saying this. Many Indigenous families and individual people attend to celebrate Australia Day on the 26th of January yearly. My first preference would always be to celebrate Australia Day on the 26th. But let's stop this divisive attitude and unite Australia as one. I look forward to the motion on the notice and its discussion to take place on item 11.2 on the agenda. And I actually welcome any questions from any councillor. There's only 7 now that actually voted to cancel Australia Day.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. You did take over your time limit. I did give you a bit of extra time, so we might leave questions, but you get to hear some of
The
those.
question don't be the comprehensive material. Can we get it into the council records?
Mr. Tate could send it to myself or governance or the CEO. I mean, it wouldn't form part of the minutes.
No, but at least we've got it. I mean, even with the previous speaker, Mr. Cuthbertson, with a lot of figures.
Yeah, so with regards to the budget, I would encourage all residents to submit that documentation as a submission to the budget process. That will be captured. That, Mr. Tate, if you'd like anything specific captured in our systems that he hasn't already sent us, he could send it to myself and the CEO, and all councillors, of course. Yeah.
Well, certainly what I recorded when I switched it off, I'm quite happy to put in form so that you have a record of it, or do you not want that?
You can send it through to us, and then it would be part of our, within our system. It wouldn't form part of the council minutes, so that's not the practice.
I think I won't worry about it because I've been doing this for 2.5 years and I've never ever had a response back from the councillor except from this lady here, which we tried to do a reconciliation and there was no response from anyone.
All right, thanks Mr Tate. I do recall having a coffee catch up.
And I had a coffee with you too. And I remember saying if you don't celebrate Australia Day, you should go and live in China.
And we'll leave it at that.
No.
All right, so
no.
We'll move on. That's the public forum finished, so we have no presentations.
I'd like to make a comment about this process. I think it's a really important one, but I do think that the sense of fairness, I think timekeeping is really important, and that we make sure that everybody has the opportunity and an equal opportunity to contribute. I feel that some people didn't contribute fully because they felt others had taken too much time and they were worried about it. But in future, I would really like to see it. If they have 5 minutes, they have 5 minutes.
Yeah, so there's two different, I guess, aspects of it. One is the budget, which happens once a year, which we've just occurred. And the other one is around the public forum exclusively, which is guided by our meeting procedures, where it is 10 minutes in total, irrespective of how many people come along, unless there's leaving the meeting, because there are only 2 people that spoke tonight. They get a maximum of 5 minutes. With respect to the budget, yes, I was a bit lenient to give people the opportunity to share their thoughts, because I thought it was an important process.
So do you know by the percentage of the people that are here today and here and the next meeting? I'm going to be shut off again.
Sorry, excuse me, we don't...
There's 50 people here right now that wanted to speak. How would you have cut us up?
Okay, generally we don't speak from the gallery, but I will address that question.
Yeah.
We have a public forum every single meeting. Our meeting procedures determine that there's a maximum of 10 minutes allowed, irrespective of how many people come along. However, when there have been items which generate more community interest, what I would do is I would seek leave of the meeting from the chamber to allow more time, so then each individual will have a greater opportunity to address the chamber on whatever that might be. But that's something I have to do at the time. Like the meeting procedures themselves have a 10 minutes maximum, but the council can have leave of the meeting to extend that meeting, which we have done a number of times. Okay, we do have questions on notice, which were submitted by Councillor Gladigo and answered by Ms Ballantyne. There's no additional questions in relation to that. I'll move to motions on notice. The first motion on notice is from Councillor Osterstock. If you'd like to move and speak to that motion, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I move that that Council includes in the letter Appendix 1 of item 11.1 to the State Government that Council encourages it to seek alternative or additional sponsors for the TDU that do not promote burning of coal, oil or gas. This is in relation to Decision 21126 of the 9th day of June 2026, that motion be rescinded. And in speaking to that motion, members would be aware, having read the report that accompanies the motion, that on that day, the 9th of June, we moved motion 210 of 26, and it specifically instructed the council, the mayor, to do certain things in relation to communicating with the Premier and the Minister for, bear with it, the Minister for the Environment. Certain things, nothing more and nothing less. With the addition of Resolution 211, which I am asking the Council to rescind, it is in direct conflict with that Resolution 210. The inclusion of the letter that was in the agenda at that time, which is attached as an appendix, clearly is in conflict with the substantive resolution. The letter contains things in it that the council did not resolve to do or say in motion 210. Members, at 211 cannot stand, it needs to be rescinded. The fact I put it down to an oversight on the part of the council, and that oversight has caused the council some public difficulty. This rescission motion corrects the public record. And that is an important function that we need to do. Importantly, the motion that we passed, 210 of 26, when one compares it with the letter that was attached as an appendix to 211, the letter talks about, contains several paragraphs outlining council's climate emergency declaration, etc. The substantive motion contains none of that. The letter contains a direct criticism of Santos as the naming rights sponsor of the TDU. The motion, the substantive motion, does not mention Santos by name at all, and it does not express deep disappointment in relation to Santos. The letter requests to incorporate sustainability criteria into all major state-sponsored events. The motion itself does not specify that. It only requests this in relation to the TDU, not all events. And in respect to collaboration with the Tourism Commission, who we have a great partnership with, it talks about the letter contains reference to the Tourism Commission. The motion itself, the substantive motion, does not mention the Tourism Commission at all. Members, we need to correct the public record. This motion, importantly, is not about a debate about coal, oil and gas. This is a governance, this is a procedural motion. It is not a debate about fossil fuels. It is a procedural motion. We need to correct the public record. We have resolved 210 in a certain way, and as a consequence, 211 cannot stand at all. It needs to be rescinded to correct the public record and to correctly convey to the public the correct position that this council has adopted in relation to this matter. I commend the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parker, do you
No,
wish
I've
to
got a
say-
question.
Sure.
So through you, Mayor, should this motion proceed, would the letter be rewritten in accordance with the original motion?
Yes.
Is that your intent, Councillor Roster?
Yes,
Yeah, well that's what.
Okay, in that case, I second.
Do you wish to speak to the item?
I supported the original motion and I supported the intent of the original motion, but when we debated the original motion, we were very careful to make sure that the directness of those references, we managed that quite carefully, and we certainly support the TDU. And I feel that the letter needs to be crafted in a way that respects the original motion that we agreed to. So if this allows that to happen, then I support this motion.
Yes, Councillor Mudge, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, look, thank you, Mayor. I support this motion as well, and I guess I quote the staff's response to this particular motion, where it says the inclusion of this reference, and that's a reference to Appendix 1 in that motion, may be interpreted as creating an obligation to issue the correspondence substantially in the form of Appendix 1. This creates ambiguity regarding the extent to which the administration may finalise and refine a letter to ensure alignment with Council's Resolution, rescinding resolution 211/26 would remove this ambiguity and provide clear direction that correspondence is to be finalised in accordance with resolution 210/26. So I think, unfortunately, by making sort of motions on the fly, we sort of passed two motions which sort of conflicted with each other. And I think by rescinding the second motion, which is at 211/26, we'll correct that. Unfortunately, I think some of the negative publicity that council got as a result of this motion may have been as a result of that second motion. There was lots of declarations made in some of the articles that I saw, which were quite unfortunate. So, in a way, this is sort of shutting the gate after the horse is bolted, but it's better to shut it than not shut it at all. So, motion.
Anyone else wish to speak to the item? Yes, Councillor.
I think it's very important that we correct the public record. Oh, sorry.
That's all right. You can.
Oh, sorry. Did I skip it?
That's fine. Just continue speaking. Then I'll go.
Yeah, very important that we correct the public record. The motion that we passed and that was amended, and the amendment which I seconded specifically removed the naming of Santos, and the fact that that letter is even considered as part of the motion. I think obviously a huge mistake. The minutes that were circulated also had myself and Councillor Mudge incorrectly as moving and seconding that motion, and so the impact on us and our reputation and what we stand for has also been affected. So yeah, very important that we correct the public record. So I support the motion. Thanks, Mark.
Councillor McDonald.
I agree and understand the importance to make procedural system work, and I understand what the point one motion did. But I do think that rescinding the point does more than just correct a procedural issue. I think that it can look as if we are bowing to media pressure and being a bit scared off by what has been said because of the motion being out there. It's already out there as well. We know that it's been in the advertiser and it's also been in Mayor Daniel's address to people through the Hills Voice. So I think we don't really want to look wishy-washy and put up a question and take it back and tell everyone we did it and then tell them we're not doing it. That there was negative response to, but there was also a lot of positive response to. Particularly in my area, in my demographic, we had a lot of support, a lot of young people really supporting that idea. And I think that I would like to see a revision so that it makes it more relevant and can still be included. I understand a rescission, but I will bring another motion back to make sure that the sentiment of that particular one is still true.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I inquire as to whether Councillor Osborne would accept a variation which would retain the original intent of...
If you can present your variation and then I'll consider whether it can be accepted as such.
Yeah, okay, so I've circulated it. So it's the suggestion was to basically replicate what the original item was that's being rescinded, but removing the reference, erroneous reference to the letter, the example letter, which came from a workshop, removing reference to that because it was constraining the motion. I think that's the intent of what Councillor Osterstock was seeking to do, and that is remove reference to the letter.
Hold on, I'll address what you've said. Yeah. Okay, so the way it is, because this is a rescission motion, and what you're suggesting, I understand wanting to bring back in the intent of what council endorsed last meeting, but that would need to be by a written notice on motion. Because if we're to rescind this decision, then again it's making a new decision about this matter, which my advice has been given. Advice given to me is that that would need to be a notice or motion on notice. Councillor McDonald, do you have a question?
Yes.
Yes.
In the same way that the sending of the letter was put off for this motion, would the sending of the letter be put off if we were to suggest another motion to come up in the next meeting?
That's an administration question. It could be.
What would constitute that?
Well, if there's no burning time commitment in relation to that letter, then the administration could determine to hold off sending that letter.
Am I correct in saying there's not a time?
No, there's not.
Right?
Any other debate or questions? Okay, Councillor Stock, you're right of reply.
Thank you. Yes, I just reiterate, this is a governance matter. It's not a debate about coal, oil or gas. It's nothing more than, as I said, correcting the public record, correcting an administrative error, my turn, that the council made, my turn. In respect to this matter, we moved a resolution, we then moved another resolution which was in conflict with the resolution that we'd moved previously. This motion needs to be rescinded to properly correct and reflect the will of the council in respect of the substantive motion, which is fully supportive of the Two Down Under, commends the state government and those associated with the Two Down Under, and I think it's this council has demonstrated that it is committed to the Two Down Under and recognises the economic, social rewards that the event has for our Hills community, the state, and indeed on the world stage. So I commend the motion.
Okay, debate closed. All those in favour indicate. Those against? That motion is carried. So we move on to item 11.2 now. Councillor Hammond, I understand you have different wording to what is in the agenda that you would like to move.
Can you make that larger? Sorry, turning on.
And just before I speak,
We'll give elected members a minute to read it, I think.
and still some more to come. At 5:01.
Does anyone need me to read it out? Alright, then. Councillor, have you considered something?
Yeah, it's further advice at 5:01, the administration picked up, that was just minor.
That's in there.
That's what I'm going to move, yeah.
Okay. Would you like to move and speak to your item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just judging by my original motion that I put up, it has now been through the administration, and I'll read out my prepared notes. Yeah. And I thank the Director for providing advice on the motion, which provides more context about the content of the proposed report. This motion is calling for a report on the historic decision to not conduct civic awards and hold citizenship ceremonies and celebrate Australia Day on the 26th of January. I do not intend to debate the merits of the current council policy tonight. That debate should be had when members, particularly the new members, have all the information placed before them. Tonight there is a report of the July 2023 report. Now it's almost 3 years since that decision, which was rejected by many of the community. The group led by Mr Tate has appeared at this council many times, reiterating many of the community's views, and that we should be proud to celebrate Australia Day on the 26th and not feel embarrassed. There are residents in adjoining councils, and I did do a check today, that hold their award ceremonies on the 26th of January and celebrate Australia Day on the 26th of January. You will note that one of the changes up there is an extension of time, the 8th of September. The administration has asked for that date to be pushed out a little bit, and I acknowledge that's reasonable circumstances. So I'm not sure that I need to say much more than that, because it is calling for a report, not a debate on the substantive issue of Australia Day on the 26th. And I would expect the summary, the request for the report asks for a summary of all council resolutions, and we've heard Mr Tate refer to a petition of some 1,000 people that was signed some time ago. A summary of people's views on the matter. I don't think we need to get into the document, all the documents that have been considered by the council. I think it would just get a bit too large, and it might miss the point, and people might gloss over it rather than absorb what's in there. And to clearly define the options for council's consideration, which could be including a reaffirmation or amendment to existing policy positions. Depending on the outcome, there could be an impact on council's finances. Under the previous regime, the community groups that conducted Australia Day were given $1,400 each, I think $1,400. So if that was to be implemented again, there could be there would be an expectation that the council would again contribute at least that level of money, probably be closer to $2,000 because of the inflationary circumstances. I think that's all I need to say at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Herman. And as you indicated, the debate is about the merits on whether you want to bring a report back to council, not on changing or maintaining council's current decision at this point. Councillor Grant?
Yeah, can I just ask a procedural question?
Yes.
This is radically different from what was in the agenda. Is this actually the same motion on notice, or is it completely new?
It's considered fine, yeah, in terms of, because it's still limited to requesting a report, and that is what. Yeah, and there's no previous decision in relation to asking for a report.
And I did circulate it to members today, this morning.
Whereas if it was a decision, let's say Councillor Herman had asked for a report, but then he tried to move a rescission motion or something like that, that would not be considered acceptable. Okay, so we've got someone like to second your motion. Councillor Gladigo, do you wish to speak to the item?
I'll reserve the right at still motion.
Would anyone like to contribute to the debate? Councillor Parkin.
I'd like to move an amendment on that.
Sure. Well, what is it? I shouldn't say sure before I hear it.
Yeah, you might say
no.
It has been forwarded to government's performance. Basically, what I would like to do is still request a report. I'd like to request that the CEO investigates and provides a report by the 8th of September 2026 on the ways that Council could support Australia Day events moving forward on the days around 26th of January, including 26th of January, that would best suit the community or group holding the event while maintaining Council's commitment to reconciliation. And then I'd like to say to that, if I may.
I have to repeat that, first.
I will in a minute if you want. I'll speak to it, which hopefully means later.
So, yeah. So because, do you want to?
So in terms of an amendment for the purposes of the meeting procedures, an amendment can only be a refinement of what's currently before the council for its discussion and debate. What's currently before the council is a report in relation to the council's consideration and treatment of Australia Day. What's been proposed by way of an amendment goes beyond that, and it's looking for the treatment of matters such as reconciliation and other events, including Australia Day. So it's not a refinement of what you've got before you, but it adds an additional topic, subject matter in relation to what is to be
Okay, I mean, I can remove that final bit. So I could say, I could remove that best suits the community or group holding the event, full stop. If that's...
So how does that work?
So we basically request that the CEO investigates and provides a report by the 8th of September 2026 on ways that Council could support Australia Day events moving forward on the days around 26th of January, but including 26th of January, that best suit the community or group holding the event.
Yeah, that's okay.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, if I may speak, I think you'd have to be living under a rock not to understand that there are two very, very different viewpoints and sides to this particular argument. And you know, the people wanting to have their events on the 26th of January have come and spoken many, many times. We know how you feel and we know why you feel that way. But we've also had people coming and speaking on the other side of things as well. They feel very passionately about the rights of Indigenous Australians, and they feel that it's very, very disrespectful to hold an Australia Day celebration event on the 26th of January. And I can understand both points of view. I think, you know, if you have celebrated Australia on 26th of January your whole life and that's really important to you, then that is still important to you. I also understand that there are people who very, very passionately feel the opposite. So I think that we could get reports until we're blue in the face about the two different sides of this, but I don't think that they're going to educate anybody. We both know what the two sides of this are. We're pretty across it, right? But I think what needs to happen is to reintroduce an element of choice. So somebody raised earlier that, you know, previous to this, community groups were given a certain amount of funding to spend on their Australia Day celebrations or events. And when this first happened a few years ago, we talked to some groups and they were really happy not to hold an event on the 26th of January. They really felt it would be respectful to Indigenous Australians to not do that. But we also know that there were some groups that really resented that and they wanted to keep holding their event on the 26th of January. So what I think could be fair moving forward is if we run a report, we do some investigations on how people could choose. So if your particular group, if you feel really passionate about holding something on 26th of January, then you should be able to choose to do that and still receive that council funding. But if you feel really passionately that you don't want to do that and you would like to hold something on a different day or a different time, then you should also be able to apply for council funding to do that. So that's what I would like a report to investigate, and I would like to note that we are not making a decision on that right now. What we're doing is doing some investigations on what that could possibly look like, the kinds of groups that could possibly support, including the groups that are very, very passionate about this issue. So I think I'm really sick of this. I think we all are, right? And I think we all understand that everybody has really passionate points of view and the answer really has to be somewhere in the middle. So let's go find that middle. And so I commend the motion. Thank you.
So I'd like to second the amendment. Councillor McDonald, do you wish to speak?
No.
Yes.
Can I just ask a question? Is that amendment now well, assuming in part is carried, but is that the entirety of the motion now?
No, it would then become the motion as amended, so that would be added to Councillor Herman's motion.
So that's it all in one.
Oh, okay, so it'll be all of that.
Yeah, so that amendment was moved by councillor Parkin to add to councillor Hammond.
Paragraph 6.
It's,
Okay.
It's an
yeah,
additional.
it's, no, actually, it's probably to replace paragraph 5, really.
I think.
What is being done? We need to be clear what's being proposed.
Yeah, look at, if you could have a look at that, Ms. Charlton, she says that it's to replace paragraph 5. Thank you, I did consult with Ms. Charlton on this.
Okay. Yeah, but she's saying.
And it wouldn't specifically be a report on the proposal by Mr. Taylor, so it could certainly incorporate that.
So,
That's all been done.
yeah, so Ms. Riddle's advice is that for that to be an amendment, it's an addition, it's not replacing point 5.
Okay.
Which is how I interpreted what you were moving.
Okay.
So as part of the report that comes back,
Would that
that would address councillor Herman's points
Yeah,
and then your point as well, should it be passed.
should be passed, okay.
So that's,
If staff are happy that they are okay to deliver that, then I'm happy to put that, and if everyone's happy with that, it's fine.
Would it be up as E?
we were just, Ms. Gill was just saying that, so we could add it as E, as an amendment, so it's an addition to the report, it's an additional aspect to the report. Alright, so that is how you're moving the amendment, that's kind of how you interpret it as an additional point. Councillor McDonald, you wish to second the amendment? Okay, does anyone wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Oster?
Just procedural, grammar, making sense. E replicates 4. So I would suggest that you delete, don't do it yet unless Mr. Riddle agrees. Request that the CEO investigates and provides a report by the 8th of September. Delete all that. That the report includes on ways that council could. Yeah, so we delete from that the report includes ways council could. Thank you. Just a suggestion, council.
Just start at ways. Is it? Wow, is it ways?
Yep, cool.
Okay, thank you. I can't see it, so it's a different. It's Charlotte.
Through you, Mayor, my understanding of the report that we would be providing provides options per C to affirm, amend or rescind. E then talks to an amendment, like if E is amending the current position.
Yes.
Because that's part of council's current. So I think it would be helpful that E says that it links those two so that the amendments include, and because I think that's kind of what E is trying to do. Amendment to the existing policy and that the amendments are ways that council could support. Or that there's clarification on what amendments council is looking for the report to provide. My interpretation will be, it will be ways that council could support Australia Day events. That will be the amendment that the report will cover to council's current position. Otherwise, I don't know what other amendments council's looking for to the position.
So I guess at this point, the way I read the motion is that the amendment that would be considered from C would be what's listed in A. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Boyd, you want to
Through you, Mayor.
speak to the
I've got a
amendment? Question? Sure.
I'm asking administration, there's 2 options that I have spoken about previously and people might know that I would like to put forward. And that is, I really like our federal government to look at May 8th for Australia Day.
That's different.
Not issue?
Completely.
Administration cannot help you with that?
No, it's not part of this.
Okay, the other thing I feel quite passionate about is holding a morning in the morning event on the 26th of January and then celebrating in the afternoon. So we have an additional event on the 26th in the morning. Is there any way I can include that in this?
It's sort of already.
How we look at this
It would come on the option.
Yeah.
It's pretty option.
Okay, so it's considered that that would be part of the report.
Okay.
Needs to go.
Sorry.
What's that? Yeah. It's not when you put on here, it's in. So it's in red. Needs to be C. C becomes D. So summary of community stakeholder perspectives, ways council to support the administration events, the final.
Alright, so Government's suggestion is to move part E to part C, so then C becomes D, D becomes D, so it's just ordered in that way. I do...
Question.
Yeah, hold on.
Point of order.
Yeah, what's your point of order?
My point of order is this is brand new material. We heard from Councillor Stock earlier in the evening making motions on the run, don't get into trouble, as we did with the Santos Spirit down under. I think a motion like this is important enough that, as you directed me at the last meeting, saying I couldn't do something without notice, and I accepted that, because it was a major thing. Introducing morning in the morning is a brand new topic.
We're not introducing it.
That's not introducing it. No, so just to be clear, all that I've proposed in terms of some of the feedback is to make paragraph 5 clear, is that A and B stay the same. C becomes that, what the amendment is we're just talking about at the moment. So it would be, so after, summary of community stakeholder perspectives drawn from previous engagement and submissions, and ways council could support Australia Day events moving forward on days around 26th of January, blah, blah, blah. Then it becomes clearly defined options for council considerations, including the reaffirmation or the amendments to policy, which picks up the director's concerns around that issue, and then the final point becomes any impact on council's position. So I just think it needs to move up to in the change.
And just a question of clarification. So if that were to occur and it was in that order, that wouldn't, the way I read it though, that would not address Councillor Boyd's question.
No, that's different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Alright, so just to check, Councillor Parkin, you're happy to admit that your amendment is sitting at point C, just so it's sequenced?
Yeah, I'm really happy if I could just see it in situ, that would be great, but I don't think it should slow down the debate if everybody's clear what we're debating on, and if it's a report. This is a report, that's all it is.
Councillor McDonald, don't accept it.
No.
No? Okay. So, does anyone wish to speak to the amendment?
I've got a question.
Yes.
Is the council considered a community or group? Is council considered a community or group?
Through you now, I did suggest, sorry, once the meeting has started, so you may not have seen my email, Councillor Parkin, that for absolute clarity, C would be better worded to say ways council could support community-run Australia Day events. Otherwise, I think I'm thinking perhaps that's where your question might come from. I think that the wording that then follows does imply that we're talking about community-run events, but for clarity in the council providing a report, if D then further clarifies, it does actually say though that we would provide options including rescinding the decision, which would go to the other aspects of the decision made 3 years ago, which is around not running citizenship events or conferring civic awards. So that would be covered in D.
It's just that the way it reads is that point 1 nearly conflicts with point, what did we change it to? C, because we're basically, Mr. Tate is asking about having citizenship and civic awards on the 26th, on Australia Day, and does that point C mean that the council could decide that it doesn't want to do that on January 26th?
That's part of the options. Yeah, it's a decision that council could make.
One conflicts the other.
No.
We're noting.
All right. Just to confirm, the first point does note, but also under 4, it talks about a report specifically about Mr Tagg's request, but then when it comes to options, yes, that could be an option that council chooses to do. It might not be, but it would be an option. Yeah. I mean, because it's a report, it's not, the report will provide options. Yes, councillor.
I have a question. So when we talk about funding, so is the position now that community groups can get funding but not for events held on the 26th, is that correct? But they can hold events on other days?
Correct.
Yeah, but if they
Yes,
want
correct.
something on the 26th, they don't receive funds?
Yes. Alright, so we can just get things back to the item itself, or the motion itself. Does anyone wish to speak to the amendment? No. Alright, so I'll put councillor Parkin's amendment. All those in favour indicate. Those against? The amendment is carried. So we now have the motion as amended. Would anyone like to speak to the motion as amended? Councillor Grant.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I don't support this motion, and I think it's clumsily written. There seems to be an implication in there that Adelaide Hills Council's cancelled Australia Day, and we have to reinstate it. Well, we haven't. I mean, the federal government sets Australia Day on the 26th of January. That's established. So there's an error of fact in there that presumes that somehow we've reinstated something that simply exists. The question isn't whether we reinstate Australia Day. The question is when we have civic and citizenship ceremonies. A second problem with this is that it's pushing the outcome towards in one direction, and it's saying to support this particular community group's initiative. I don't think it should have that bias. I think it should be completely unbiased, and without directing the CEO to investigate one particular outcome, especially when it's an outcome that we can't influence, and that's the date on which Australia Day is held. It's a piece of federal legislation. And yeah, as the report for the item says, that the administration has interpreted the motion narrowly, that the report focuses on the process of the council to change its decision to give effect to the proposal, rather than re-examining the broader issue. And I think if we want to re-examine the broader issue, we need a motion that's crafted to do that, not one that's presupposing the outcome. I don't know if preparing another report is going to add anything. This is essentially a political issue, and I thank Councillor Herman for his motion, but I think he needs to take a position and promote it and bring it to this chamber, rather than say, let's have another report with possible outcomes. I think it's just going to churn the issue. I think it's going to kick the can down the road, and I hate things being kicked down the road. So I'm not going to support that motion in its present form. I think if we thought about it more carefully, we had more time to consider it instead of trying to do the wording in the meeting, I think we might get a better motion that obtains an outcome for the whole community, not something serving a particular interest group.
Question.
Am I allowed to speak again, or?
Right of reply at the end.
Still get a
Yes, you have a right of reply. Right. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion as amended? Councillor Martin, Councillor Osterstock.
Through you, Mayor. Yeah, look, my views are similar to Councillor Grant's. I had trouble supporting this motion. I voted against the amendment, not because I'm not potentially interested in investigating it, that particular part of things, but I just think it sort of muddies the whole issue, trying to tack it onto this particular report. With the risk of reading to people the agenda, which they should have already read, I note that in Council staff's response in the risk management implications section, they said there are a number of risks associated with this particular motion.
There's a reputational risk associated with perceptions that council may be reconsidering or revisiting a previously resolved or highly sensitive issue, particularly where earlier decisions were framed within reconciliation and inclusive objectives. I'll just make one comment. The decision that was made, I think about 3 years ago, was a moral decision. It wasn't. It was made on principle. It wasn't. 50% 1 plus 1 of the community said something. It was based on reconciliation. It was based on supporting the Indigenous community, both within our council district and outside of our council district. And also make another point that I don't think, unless there's some people in the gallery who've got Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander heritage, where a bunch of white people sitting around talking about this, and we haven't heard the Indigenous views at all on this. We've heard a little bit of it at one stage.
Did you not read my letter?
Sorry, Barry.
So that's another difficulty. Another risk is community division risk, noting consistent evidence that the issue is highly polarised and has generated strong and conflicting views across the community. Another one we haven't taken into account, psychosocial risk to staff, including exposure to heightened levels of emotional and sometimes aggressive interactions with engagement with this issue. Cultural and reconciliation risk, particularly where further consideration of the issue may cause distress to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people or be perceived as undermining the Council's reconciliation commitments. And I'll just make one comment on that one. As Council's representative on the Adelaide Hills Reconciliation Working Group, I know previous moves in the direction to away from our particular commitment caused a lot of consternation in the Indigenous community in the Adelaide Hills, and it was almost sort of seen as us sort of backing away from reconciliation. And then strategic risk consideration, perceptions that council is revisiting a sensitive and divisive issue may impact community confidence and engagement in other council-led issues, particularly where council is seeking community input and on other significant priorities. This may reduce willingness to participate constructively or shift focus away from broader strategic objectives. And I will also outline Councillor Grant's comment, which I think is very true. It is very wrong to say that Adelaide Hills Council has cancelled Australia Day. We did not have the power, we've never had the power. That is something that's done by...
Why can you celebrate?
Sorry, can we just...
No.
It's a sharp... Mr Tate, Mr Tate, you've had your chance to speak. We do need to let elected members now have their say in relation to this item. If you could just be quiet.
It is a fundamental error to say that we cancelled Australia Day.
Why didn't you celebrate?
Mr Tate, thanks.
We do not have the power to do that. So look, I have for all of those issues, I have deep concerns about this motion. I think it's just sort of, as Councillor Grant said, kicking the can down the road. It's sort of, I think it's moving us towards a particular view, which is essentially, which is potentially, which is pretty much going to be rescission, and I don't believe that's the path we should take. Councillor Parkin's amendment, I'd be prepared to consider that as a separate motion. It's certainly something that
Time to wrap up,
maybe
Councillor.
compromise, so yeah. But so I...
Councillor Austin.
Can I see the motion in full, please? If not, you're voting.
We could just maybe have it on the one page on that.
Doing a great job, Sky.
Yeah, it's not easy. You can have most of it.
Yeah. I'm particularly interested, Sky, in point 1.
Yeah.
So point 1 is to note.
Yeah. I'd like to move further amendment.
Sure. What is your suggested?
Amending point 1, full stop after group, delete everything else. No, full stop after group, delete.
Just that.
Correct.
So, hold on, we just undo that. Just so I can, that's just removed. And then I assume you want to do that at what is currently stated as point 9?
Yes.
As well? Okay, so it's still noting the presentation from the Adelaide Hills Council Ratepayers and Residents group.
Yep.
And also talking about a report in relation to that group, but it is, your amendment is to remove the actual name of that. So would you like to speak to your amendment?
Oh, those words that I sought to delete, correct if I'm wrong, it doesn't undermine the motion at all. Would the administration agree with that?
Yeah, it's just removing the title.
Correct. It will still, should it get up, bring back a report on various options to do with supporting Australia Day events and things of that nature. Is that not the case?
Yeah.
It clarifies the fact that this council did not cancel Australia Day.
Correct.
And so on that basis, I commend the amendment to the council.
Okay, so the only people that can move an amendment are the people who have not spoken, of which there are 2. It's a second.
Oh, it's a second meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Does that remove my right to speak about the motion?
correct.
I know.
You can speak, I mean, given the nature of the entire motion is around a report, and this is refining that, you can...
All right, I'll get rid of this. Thank you. Cutting everyone's slack today. I'm happy to second that. I do have a question before I speak. Can I, what is, it says on the proposal put forward by Mr. John Tate, what is the proposal?
That is the documentation that was provided to us at last week's meeting, also last month's meeting, early this month on the 9th, and was circulated to us via...
I'm happy to move the second amendment. My concerns about this motion is, as Councillor Grant mentioned, is the clumsy wording. No offence, Mark, but I don't think that changes how clumsily worded it is. And I've got a very strong view that we should, as a council, actually be moving forward on things that, I mean, we had all these budget submissions. Our time and the CEO's time should be spent figuring out ways to make us more money, not just by charging ratepayers more. Our core business,
Keep
this
on
is
track
not,
to this.
yeah, this is not it. So I'm frustrated. I'm very frustrated, as most people are. I agree with Councillor Parkin that we should be moving forward with other things, but I can second that, but I don't support the motion as a whole.
Councillor McDonald, do you have a question or you want to speak to this particular amendment? Yes.
Would it be possible, and if Councillor Herman is happy to, could we defer this motion and write it better next time?
The only way it can be deferred is via a formal motion, and there's only one person who hasn't spoken who can do that. Otherwise,
Then there's no one to second.
someone can second a deferral, but there needs to be an explicit reason put forward as to what the deferral is, why and when, not just I'm going to defer the motion. Would anyone like to speak to the amendment?
Can I speak to the amendment if I've already moved an amendment within?
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyone can speak to the amendment.
Okay.
write a report.
I don't even know. Who knows? I'm bad at all the formality stuff at the best of times. I support the amendment, but then I supported the other amendment. In supporting this amendment, I would like to make reference to the fact that this amendment does still give us the option to explore solutions. This amendment is not kicking the can down the road. It is proactively exploring solutions that help bridge this divide. And so in supporting the amendment to the amendment, you are also supporting a report that actually is seeking solutions, because we actually need to seek solutions in this issue, because I'm sick of it. Like, I've been doing this, sitting here for like 3 or 4 years, hearing this from both sides several times a year. And I think we clearly need to come up with solutions. And I think the solutions are actually very simple, really. So let's go and have a think about what they might be. This amendment still includes those solutions. This amendment is not kicking any cans. This amendment is bringing a report which seeks solutions. So I commend the amendment of the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Munch.
Yeah, look, I don't think this particular amendment changes much, really. I mean, that particular thing doesn't actually even talk about Council in Australia Day, but yeah, look, I still have issues with the motion and the amendment. And I also highlight some more comments about this motion calls for a report into a particular submission with some...
Let's not recap the same points.
But yeah, it doesn't really add anything. Yeah, I just think so.
Okay, would anyone like to contribute something specific? Yes?
Yeah, just briefly, this amendment is an improvement, but my other reservations stand.
Thanks. Anyone else wish to speak to the amendment? Okay, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour indicate. Those against? The amendment is carried. So we now have the motion as amended. Councillor Boyd, do you wish to, you don't have to, but do you wish to speak to the item? No. Councillor Herman, you have your right of reply. So this is the motion as amended with those two amendments made. Actually, you'd like to speak now? Yeah, he reserved his right.
Oh. You're a
It's fine.
Okay, this has been nearly 3/4 of an hour at least debating another political topic that the council seems to get bogged down in political topics. We've done TDU, coal, oil and gas, I've done talking EVs, and this is another one. And it was raised before, it's a political issue. It was a political issue when you made a decision 3 years ago. And we still keep going round and round and round, and we don't want to touch the waters and we might offend somebody. What really probably irks me the most is if you took the time to read what Mr. Tate sent us, which is, find the right piece of paper again, because I keep losing it, was a very fantastically well-written piece, which was this piece. If you've taken the time to read it, did Mr. Tate talk about the us and them or racism or anything else? No, he did not. He spoke about Australia Day and celebrating Australia Day on the January the 26th, the day that is legislated by the federal government to celebrate Australia Day. I will take the point of saying we didn't cancel Australia Day. This council did cancel having celebrations on Australia Day, doing citizenship and civic ceremonies. And that is what this is about. All these other little bits and pieces that you've tried to adapt all the time still gets back to the same point, is are we or are we not going to do it? I would have preferred to just had a vote on whether we're going to do it or not. That was really what I was hoping we were going to get to, and that is what I think Mr. Tate and the group have been trying to achieve for the last 3 years. And I still say we're kicking the can down the road on another report. We should have just got to, had a vote, had a discussion, and I actually expected we'd actually have community consultation, which you refused to do last time. which is what we're trying to do more as a council and get community input into what the council does and how we make decisions. Would have been a great way to go, but we haven't. So I will support this, but end of the day, I hope by the 8th of September we actually have a vote and make a decision on this. I didn't agree with the ones before about on or around or whatever, which is now in there, because my thing is, as a council, the community sentiment that I receive is celebrate on January 26th is Australia Day. And until the federal government changes it, that's what we should do. And the federal government were the ones that played the real smart card and said, oh, let's not touch this ourselves. Let's put it out to the councils to make those decisions, because we actually don't want to go there ourselves. And you fell for it. So let's get this voted through. And let's move on, because I'm getting really sick of the political stuff that council keeps getting into. And as Councillor Walcott mentioned already, let's get into the stuff that deals with budgets. Let's work out how we're going to keep this council financial and get on with the real big ticket items and stop playing with all the other stuff that's burning money and burning my meeting time.
Alright, Councillor Henry.
Before I exercise my right to reply, this question you may or may not know. Mitcham used to have a celebration on Australia Day. They canned it and took the citizenship and city awards away from Australia Day. They went back. So my question to the staff, are you aware or heard of any adverse effects on the staff when that decision was reversed?
I think that's probably outside the scope of this
decision,
Councillor Herman.
Right, okay, I accept that. But, well, nothing appeared in the paper that staff were going on stress. So Councillor Mudge raised some interesting issues in regard to risk, and I acknowledge risk is always there. Being on the Audit and Risk Committee, we are very aware of risk, although this particular topic hasn't gone to those, of course. The reputational risk has already happened, unfortunately. There's widespread dissent about the decision, and that's why there's an action group that is promoting a view. Now, I was asked, or Councillor Brunner said I should take a position. I may have a position. There are other people on this council who are not familiar with the background back to 2003 or before 2003. The objective of getting a report is to bring everyone up to speed at the same level. Now, there's a lot of reading for the new councils to do, and I encourage you to do that when the reports come. Kicking the can down the road, I'm getting sick of that phrase. It's used a lot. It's used a lot. In response to Councillor Gallagher's the 8th of September, I would not see it going any further. What happens on the 8th of December, if this gets up, that's it, and I personally would not be prepared to revisit it again. We have to accept the council decision on that night, and so be it. The new council might want to revisit, but I definitely will not be. And there are probably other people that we've had this around for a long time. It's about time we did something. It's a couple of months. I think at the time taken to amass the information, analyse it, and bring back a balanced report to the 8th of September will go a long way to bringing communities together again. I won't go any further than that, because that'd be debating the issue, not the point of getting a report. And I do again acknowledge the staff. Thank you, Director, for helping put that motion together. What's mentioned as a poorly drafted a recommendation or motion. I could take that perhaps as a criticism of myself. That doesn't bother me. But I don't like that inference being made to staff reports. So I commit the motion.
Okay, the debate closed. All those in favour indicate. Those against? The motion is carried. Yes, so I set aside my previous ruling. Ask all those in favour to stand. We have Councillor Herman, Councillor Gladigo, Councillor Parkin, Councillor McDonald, and councillor Osterstock. Okay, and those against? Councillor Woolcock, Councillor Grant, Councillor Boyd, and Councillor Martin. So I declare the motion carried. Well, thanks everyone for coming along. I understand if there are no other items that you'd like to stay for. However, you're welcome to if you'd like to stay for the rest of the meeting. So we will now, we do have a number of items still to go. Would people like a short adjournment, or are you happy to keep going? Okay, so would someone like to move to adjourn to 8:45? Councillor Mudge, do I have a seconder? Councillor McDonald, all those in favour indicate. That is carried unanimously. We'll reconvene at 8:45. Thank you. So administration reports, we have 12.1, the SBA one-year agreement. Ms. Charles, do you have any new information you'd like to provide the chamber? Would like to move something, Councillor?
I'll move the recommendation as printed.
Do you wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Councillor Grant, you wish to second? Do you wish to speak?
No need to speak, thank you.
Does anyone wish to debate this item?
Which one are we on?
This is the SBA one-year funding agreement.
Well, one.
So instead of it being 3 years, because they're undertaking a strategic review, we're just suggesting 1 year on this occasion.
I didn't get my printed there. Don't do that. Thank you. It's all well. No comment.
No comment? Okay. Councillor Munch?
A question.
Yes.
The request for a one-year agreement, did that come from the SBA or did it come as a suggestion from us?
Through you, Mayor, yes, it was requested by the SBA and in discussions with them, as they were from an strategic plan, that was their preference. And I understand they're looking to seek approval at a future AGM, recently for future years. So having a one-year agreement facilitates what's been discussing that at that AGM.
Does anyone wish to debate the item? Okay, no need for a right of reply. I'll put the motion. All those in favour indicate. That is carried unanimously. So we vote with the whole jar. Jug, so. Okay, 12.2, the HUP funding agreement. Ms. Charlton, do you have any new information you'd like to provide the chamber?
Through you, Mayor, just a minor revision to the motion to take into account Councillor Hannon's feedback on the specificity on the CPI.
Someone like to move something in relation to this item?
Can I ask
question?
a question? Yeah. Through you, Mayor. The HUT funding, are there implications because of the uncertainty over the federal fund? Does the federal funding for aged care support have any implications on this funding, or is this completely freestanding?
Through you, Mayor. The core decision, so the core funding is the key decision, which is the recommendation. The schedules do talk to services that the HUT provides with the federal funding from the government, the federal government. However, the schedule clearly outlines that they're contingent on that funding continuing. So there's flexibility for the council should there be any change in that funding in the future.
Great, thank you very much. On that basis, I'd happily put the motion as on the screen.
Do you wish to speak to it?
No need to.
Someone wish to second the motion? Councillor Mudd, do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a few comments, if that's okay. This is an important agreement as the HUT undertakes a significant number of community support activities that council would otherwise look to undertake. And I do note that we heard from one of our representatives that they found council support for community centres, such as that, including the HUT, as something really valuable in what we do as a council. I think that a 3-year funding agreement is very justified. I think the CPI increases to the agreement, despite what we had in our previous agreement, are justified, as it would otherwise be an effective reduction in funding as inflation eats into funds. We're proposing to increase our rates by at least CPI, so it's not unreasonable to increase our funding to dependent bodies by at least an equivalent amount. The HUT continues to explore alternative funding, including in recent years the opening of the branch of the very successful Bookshed at Woodside. I also note they recently had a fundraising quiz night. I want to highlight the role of volunteers in the HUT's program. They have a good reputation for treating their volunteers well and leveraging our funding to get many volunteer hours, like many more volunteers, likely many more volunteer hours than the council would be able to obtain. In recent years, I've attended many of their volunteer breakfasts where volunteers have been celebrated. Of note is a new program with the involvement of the HUT in the Bridgewater and Aldgate Community Support Hub, which is a volunteer group to provide support to the community in the first 72 hours following a disaster, such as a major bushfire or storm event in the Bridgewater Aldgate region. This is done in partnership with the Village Well, and I attended a very successful exercise of this centre with the involvement of HUT staff. This to me demonstrates that HUT is always looking for new ways of expanding its services. I also note they have another program called Spark, which was established recently, seeking to address the epidemic of loneliness in our community, and they recently won one of our civic awards. So their work is very good. It's award-winning work, and I think Council's support of that is a very worthwhile expenditure of our funds, so I commend the motion.
Councillor McDonald, Councillor McDonald, then Councillor Herman.
Just wanting to restate my conflict.
Wanting to what, sorry?
Just restate I've got a conflict to it.
Yes. So do you want to state the reasons again, just for the...
Yep, I'm a volunteer with the Repair Cafe at the house. So I don't get any financial or benefit otherwise.
So general conflict with Stone Room. And Councillor Herman, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, no, I was going to ask perhaps for the medical sector to have a variation. The variation would be, Council notes that the total annual value of Council's support to the HUT is approximately $175,500, comprising $140,000 core or organisational funding and $35,000, which is the estimated running cost of 2 community buses. In addition, Council provides $11,500 to the HUT to provide social support and transport coordination, which is funded from the Commonwealth funding.
Okay, so Councillor Grant, so that's just noting essentially the funding that we provide to the HUT. You have to accept that variation.
Yeah, if those numbers are correct. Well,
yes, they're correct. Councillor Martin. Okay, so I just seek leave of the meeting to accept that variation. If we can just have a show of hands.
And the reason for that
variation is accepted.
Gives a total picture.
Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Yes.
Got a question.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure how to word it, but would there be an issue to you, Mr. Charlton, if it was only a 1-year funding agreement, given there's a few moving pieces at the moment?
Sorry, would there be any concern with the administration if the agreement was 1 year?
Yes.
I think it would probably be more the HUT that would have concerns with that approach, but we have previously had 1-year extensions, so the current agreement was a 1-year extension of the previous 3-year agreement. Might be getting confused with my SBA and HUT extensions, but I think there's been at least one extension to the 3-year HUT agreement, so that's something that could be workable from the administration's perspective, because we could bring back a further report at a similar time frame. I think it would be the HUT that would, they have indicated to council that longer term funding agreements are more better for them in terms of planning and long term budgeting, but it's ultimately up to council to determine the funding period.
I've got a question too, just a follow-on from Councillor Gladigo. So Jess, you sent an email today, a confidential email. In the light of that confidential email, is it worth deferring this decision or limiting?
The current agreement runs out at the end of June though, so that's why. So we need to make a decision.
Yeah.
So do you have any concerns?
If you wanted to speak candidly about that, we need to move into confidence to have that discussion, which we can do.
Do you think it's worth it?
It's going to help you make a decision.
Do you think it is
Well,
worth it?
definitely. If this email that's floating around bears on this issue, we need to be privy to that. That's different.
What we now do is, that's what's like.
You should have one.
I'm just having a look for it.
Jess.
So it's, so it's no issue committee-wise, we just want to play around.
Okay.
Can't find any of that.
Hold on.
11:45 a.m.
Could we, I think the easiest way to deal with this would be to move into confidence, so then elected members can be more up to speed if they're not, and also to give a chance for questions and then make a decision. So if we could just, once government's already, have a confidentiality motion.
Yes.
Do you need the confidentiality?
Yeah, what? So it's intelligent. Yeah. It is, I think it's fine. Okay, so we have a motion to move into confidence. Councillor Parkin, you were happy to move that way.
I'll second it,
Councillor Foster Stock. All those in favour indicate, just to move into confidence so we can discuss this, carried unanimously. Apologies, Mr Wilson. So you can remain out in the
Point moving forward from where 3 years might just take it a little bit too far.
Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Gallagher, you have your hand first, you wish to speak?
Yeah, look, I think that's a bit more secure way just to operate this at the moment. Give us a little bit of leeway and not lock ourselves in just at the moment while the puzzle keeps coming together. So, I'll support that. That's what I'm saying.
Someone else like to speak to the amendment? Okay, then I'll put the amendment itself. All those in favour indicate. That is, were you against? Yeah, you're against, so carried. So we now have the motion as amended. Would anyone like to speak to the item that hasn't already? Councillor Boyd.
Just really briefly, I think people can underestimate the amount of work that the hut does. I think that they definitely deserve some ongoing funding so they can do all that payment that needs to be done. But we're very, very lucky to have that organisation and functioning so well in our community. And particularly as we might be pulling back services, we've got to look after our little organisations that would squirrel away and do a fantastic job for everyone involved. So I thoroughly support us supporting the hut ongoing.
Would anyone else like to speak to the motion as amended? Councillor Grant, you need the right to reply.
Just a couple of points. Thank you, Mayor. There was discussion about how well heeled the hut finances were in the past, and they did look much better in the past, it's true, but I think, having discussed this previously, I think this is completely appropriate and have to return with value for investment. So, yeah, I think this is an appropriate decision.
Okay, the debate closed. All those in favour indicate. That is carried unanimously. We'll move on to item 12.3, Southern Hills draft 26-27 business plan CEO. Do you have any new information? Someone like to move something in relation to this item? Councillor Parkin?
As Bridget.
Wish to speak?
I believe that it is, from what I've seen, what little I've seen, it's a reinvigorated organisation. It's also a relatively simple organisation, a small organisation, but it's, I think, providing better value for us now than it has in the past, and I really look forward to seeing what it does representing our council group.
Do I have a seconder? Anyone? Councillor Mudge? Wish to speak? No. Does anyone wish to debate the item? Councillor Herman?
Yes, I had a question to the administration. I'm just looking at the page, but in the plan last year they had a salaried executive officer. This year they've gone to consultants.
Correct.
And there's a huge increase in cost that I can see. So I'm just asked for, I will find the page quickly. Yeah. I just wondered about the logic of shifting from a salaried person to in effect a consultant.
So Southern Hills, 12 to 18 months ago, went through a bit of a strategic review because their previous executive officer was stepping away. And the executive officer used to undertake two roles, one being around the strategy of the association and the other aspect being around the administrative side of things. And what they did is they split that out. So now they have, I can't remember who specifically off the top of my head, one of the councils that processes and runs all the administrative side of things. And the executive officer solely primarily focuses on strategy. I think that is better for the association, and when she came on board, the pathway to go down, or what was decided, was for it to be a contract position, but the cost is no different than if it was an employment position.
Just if I can debate the matter then, in last year's contracts were 23,100. The proposed cost this year is 147,000. It's an increase of 124,000. But then there's savings. This is on page 120. The employment cost of an officer
went from
98,000. So it seemed to me a little bit more. This is on page 120.
So the consulting has changed by, yes, about 124, and the total employment costs have reduced by 98. I'm happy to follow up what the difference to that is, and whether it's for a particular branch.
Something there, thank you.
No worries. Yes,
I did raise this with admin, which they've noted, and they will get back to Southern Hills LGA, but on page 117 in their profit and loss budget summary one, the total income says 244,184, and it's actually should be 248,184.
Thank you. All right. Does anyone else wish to debate the motion? No. So, Councillor Parker, no need for a right of reply. Put the motion. All those in favour indicate. That is carried unanimously. We move on to item 12.4, budget review 3. Mr. Lewis, do you have any new information you'd like to provide the chamber? Someone like to move something in relation to this? Councillor Osterstock?
That's correct.
Do you wish to speak to the item?
No, just to say it's a good result, a decrease in the operating deficit by nearly $1 million. And clearly the community will be delighted with that figure.
Councillor Parker, you wish to second?
I do wish to second. We've been through a number of workshops around this to arrive at a number. It's a number that we need in order to maintain.
This is just budget review, not the budget.
We're going. This is budget review.
So budget review 3, 12.4.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I still second it.
No.
It's late. I'm sorry.
You can reserve your right if you think better than
No.
Councillor Hanna, you wanting to speak to the item?
Yes, I was just wondering if we could expand. Yeah, I support it. But in point, where's it down the bottom? 3, the council notes the recommendation of the Audit and Risk Committee, particularly point 5 of the Audit and Risk Committee resolutions. I'd like to see that in full rather than referring someone from this report to another set of minutes. So I would ask to have it included. I'll have to get up the Audit Committee minutes.
So you're wanting to include the exact wording?
Yeah, I'll give you the wording.
So it's on page 123. Yeah, so because it's just no words, he's going to add that.
Yeah, that's right.
And that would just be a variation.
There is variation.
Are you able to copy the wording or do you want to type it out?
I'll be in 10 minutes, sorry. I'm working.
Okay, I think.
Budget review 3. The audit committee, just as a point of interest for people, we started at 6 o'clock and finished at 10 o'clock.
Hold on, so are you...
Yeah, I am proposing.
Before you speak,
yes,
I'll look to see if the mover and seconder are happy to accept it as a variation, because it's just noting something. So I'll wait for something on the board, and then if once they accept it or not, then you can either choose to speak to the item or have an amendment. Just read it out. So if anyone can't see the screen, point 5 of the Audit and Risk Committee minutes or resolution recommendation is on page 123 of the agenda, which is currently being written up there. Thank you.
Goodness. When are the Audit Committee appointments coming up for renewal?
Want to get rid of us?
Anyway, so Councillor Herman is asking if the mover and seconder are happy to accept this as a variation, given that it's just noting.
We've accepted the minutes, haven't we?
Not yet, that's later in the meeting.
Don't accept.
Alright, so are you happy
Yes.
with that variation?
Yes.
Councillor Parkin?
Yes.
Seek leave of the meeting, which is by show of hands.
Goodness me.
Okay, so Councillor Herman, speak to the item.
There's a bit of humour about that, but I believe it's very important for the Audit Committee to report to this council, and it's in the public forum. I won't ask around the chamber who's read the Audit Committee meeting minutes thoroughly. I won't ask that question, because I'm not sure what answers I'll get. But now, you're very well aware that the committee has made that, or noted that. If you can read it, Councillor. Yeah, so that's the point of it. It doesn't change anything really, but it highlights that if there's ever a question on why you're running deficits, it's really the Audit Committee stuff. The council knows about it. And don't want the buck to stop the Audit Committee while I'm on.
Alright, does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Yeah, Councillor Marsh.
I just wanted to ask a question about that one, because I was actually going to speak on that and highlight that as well.
That's your question.
In that it says the current long-term financial plan, so it uses the term current. Does that leave open for us to actually revise the long-term financial plan?
Yes, because we're just noting it. Like we're noting that, and that's a recommendation.
Okay.
Naturally, according to legislation, we have to review our LTFP anyway. Yeah.
Okay. But I will speak to it if I could. Because I will admit I didn't read every single line of the Audit Committee minutes, but I did read that bit. And I was sort of debating about whether I would discuss this particular section here or when we receive the minutes, but I was planning on speaking to it here. Yeah, look, I think that's an excellent recommendation. And I think this is one of the ways that we can explain to our community what we're doing, basically. Yes, we've got a bad result coming up for this year and a bad result for the next financial year. But in the long term, we're developing a plan to get us back into a sustainable budget position. You know, no later than 2029, 28, 29 is probably a good goal. It gives us a few years to get there. And I'm really sort of happy that the audit committee has given us this particular nudge, because I think it's something that we really need to take heed of. So yeah, I think the actual result at BR3 is actually a good result, 900,000 improvement, and that's 900,000 that puts us back on the road towards sustainable surpluses, operating surpluses. But we need to do more, and I'm really happy that in the last couple of months we've been exploring ways of doing that, and I'd like to see that continue. So yeah, that's my comments. So I recommend the motion.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the item? Councillor Stock, you need a right of reply. With the debate closed, all those in favour indicate. That is carried unanimously. Move on to 12.5, policy review for street lighting. Ms. Valentine, do you have any new information you'd like to provide?
No, I'll take it as read.
So would anyone like to move something in relation to this item? Councillor Osterstock?
I'll move the policy document as printed.
Do you wish to speak to it? No. I have a seconder. Councillor McDonald, do you wish to speak?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
In the section where it was saying that if appropriate action is taken for someone to reduce the light coming into their property, if it's agreed that yes, they did take that over steps, but there is still light coming in, are they then still required to spend that $2 to $3 grand on the shield, even though they've done as much as they could?
Yes, we have put in the hardship clause, so if there's a
30%.
Yep, we can assess that, but the lamps that have been replaced, the majority of street lights meet an Australian standard. It is highly unlikely after a shield is placed on that there will be any light entering any property, and that's I think what your question is referring to. So if a shield had been placed on and there was still light,
if it was before the shield was placed and they put up a fence and trees and blinds and stuff, but there was still...
Yes, if they still request the shield, we would only consider hardship measures in order to contribute anything towards that shield. Yes, that's great.
Thanks. Would anyone like to speak to the item? Should no right of reply then, I'll put the motion. All those in favour indicate. That is carried unanimously. The NGA voting preferences. CEO, do you have any new information you'd like to provide the chamber? So I'd like to move something in relation to this. Councillor Grant, do you wish to speak to the item?
As on the screen, just briefly, I think this is, in the past we sent a delegate who listened to the debate and voted in line with what they felt this council believed. And then we adopted a practice of providing guidance. While I put this motion, I think we should perhaps in the future consider whether the more responsible way to go. If we send delegates with a fixed position to vote, they're not really open to the debate that may happen at the conference, and we're not a Labor party. They should go with the ability to simply make a decision based on the information they find at the time. Having said that, I think this is appropriate in this case. There's certain risks with having that, completely open to the discretion of the candidate, but I'd be interested in other people's thoughts in the future.
Thanks, Councillor Grant. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mudge, do you wish to speak?
I'll second this and respond to Councillor Grant.
Please do.
I do know that in Appendix 2, it does actually, for quite a significant number of motions, have a position which is delegate to listen and use discretion to determine council's position when voting. And that's on quite a few different options. In fact, stuff under intergovernmental relations, job skills, are mostly that sort of position. I think in the past, maybe when we've had the mayor going, I guess that's been a bit more of a senior position, and maybe that's why we haven't sort of done something like this. But I think this is good because it raises the visibility of the motions that are going to this particular forum to our eyesight. Basically, we can actually read through them and look at them. I did try to look through some of them. I was a bit frustrated by the way the report was done, but that's something I need to talk to governments about. It's difficult to jump back and forth between motions, you know, like 131, like I have to just scroll through the document until I find it, whereas it would be nice if I could just sort of jump straight to it and get a quick summary of it and things like that. But I think this is a good way to do it, particularly when we don't have the mayor or the deputy mayor going. And it allows us to consider our position in a more thorough manner. So I support the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Mudge. Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Boyd.
Yes, through you, Mayor. I think that it does allow attendees to be open to debate and make decisions based on what's presented at the time, and it means that they're more able to respond, which means they get a more positive experience out of attending the conference. So I do support this motion.
Thanks. Just to clarify, so in Appendix 2, which is page 344 and 45, there are certain motions which essentially we're endorsing and saying Councillor Cheetah needs to support, whereas there are others which, as Councillor Mudge alluded to, delegate to listen and use discretion. So there's a bit of a mix. Anyone else wish to contribute to the debate? Councillor Grant, no need for a roll for blood. Put the motion. All those in favour indicate. Those against. The motion is carried. We have no information items, no correspondence. No. Do we have any questions without notice?
Yes.
No, that's all I have.
Here we go. To the CEO or relevant director, will the council be making a comment on the Food Hazard Code amendment originally released by the Planning Commission?
Through you, Mayor. So yes, we are engaging with the, I hate to correct you, but the flood hazard code amendment. Is that the?
Yeah, the Food Flood Hazard Code amendment.
Yeah. So yes, we're engaging with the State Planning Commission, and we've reached out to staff across the organisation to inform our response. We've shared promotion of that proposed code amendment which the state government is running in the community. Given it's a largely technical proposed code amendment, we're planning to provide a response under delegation. The proposed code amendment is looking at updating the planning and design code with up-to-date flood hazard mapping, particularly along the Torrens and Goonga rivers, but we will circulate our response to council for any comment for submission, which we'll be making for submissions close in early August.
Thank you. The reason I asked that question, being a rep on the Gawler River Flood Management Authority, are you picking up the huge volume of water that runs from Malcolm Creek into the South Parra reservoirs in the discussion? Are you looking at the northern end like? Well, it is Mountain Creek. Not named after. That's not named after.
It should have been named after. It should have been. It was back on our side.
No, we pay 50,000, whatever it is, to be a member of that Gawler River Flood Management Authority. So I just wonder whether your examination only looked at, say, the Mountain Creek or the Torrens, etc. Are you taking in the northern sector?
Through you now, I can convey that to the team and seek further clarification, but essentially the state government is just wanting to update the code with the latest flood hazard mapping that they have, the detail that they've got, and they're seeking their consultation on those changes.
Okay. Thank you. Second question, what legal costs has the council incurred to date defending the CAP decision on the PC infrastructure, the Gerber station? And does council have, I'll answer that one first.
Through you, Mayor, to date the costs are approximately 130,000, which were incurred in 23-24 and 24-25.
Thank you. Second question is, does the council here have any control over what costs CAP can incur to defend decisions? And the reason I ask that question is CAP can go away and spend money like it's going out of style, and we pick up the bill. So, thanks. So does the council have any control over CAP?
Through you, Mayor, in short, no. The statutory framework set up by the state government makes it clear that in performing its role and function, the CAP is an independent authority, not subject to the direction of the council. And the PDI Act also makes it clear that the council is responsible for the costs and liabilities associated with the activities of the CAP, of the panel, and that includes whether CAP is involved in litigation, including any appeal against its decision. The scheme, the Act does not enable council to indirectly control things, for example, setting a cap, pardon the pun, sorry, on the activities of the CAP or limiting their expenditure. Having said that, CAP members are statutory holders and subject to the same obligations around acting in the public interest and not committing maladministration or corruption, and their decisions around appeals are guided by legal advice and, in this context, likely senior counsel, so around the prospects or otherwise of any appeal. So you would expect that a CAP would be undertaking their duties considering that legal advice, and if there were prospects of an appeal being strong or weak, that they would be guided by those decisions and considering their role to make decisions in the public interest.
Thank you. Not sure. It's not
final question, Councillor.
Final question is, someone revenue raising, council can cut expenses, they raise it schedule too as well. So fees and charges, we haven't looked at that at all in the budget context yet. So the question is, fees and charges schedule, will this go to a workshop or going to council presumably on the 14th of July for adoption?
Through the Mayor, we will bring the fees and charges to the same workshop as a written consultation, which I think will be the 9th.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if you've been emailed yet, but you will get an email.
Thank you.
Inviting you to that workshop.
Okay. Yes, Councillor March.
My question is in regards to a recent document that's been released by the state government called the South Australian State Bushfire Risk Assessment. I guess my question is whether the administration are aware of that and whether they're looking at it and analysing it and potentially looking at the ramifications of that model.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Through you, Mayor, very much aware, have been a part of the committee working on the document. Very significant involvement by Adelaide Hills Council in the work on that and right across it.
Final questions? Any motions without notice? We'll move on to reports. Does anyone from the next step? Okay, GRFMA, Councillor Hammond, anything specific to report back from that meeting?
Yes, it's a new broom in the Light Council. So the new broom wants to make its mark. That's new broom's not to be. That's the CEO, so.
Who's the CEO?
Darryl Wicker. Darryl Wicker. Wicker. Right.
It's a new broom.
Right, so that, when the council approved the GFRMA's budget and included in the budget was $100,000 to do some tests to make, after 20 years, the MCOL or something it's called, large dams, guidelines say you must test your wall every 20 years, and it hadn't been done, so there's $100,000 worth of drilling going on there. Light, so there were two sections of the budget, but they approved the normal operating side. They refused to put their share of the 100,000 in, and they lodged a formal dispute, as we did. They went through the process. So we had an on-site meeting with them at the dam in the rain to work that through. So I'm not sure what their position will be. We'd hope there's a board meeting on next Thursday, and I've been speaking to the chair of the board, and think we might have a compromise. They also raised the charter, which sets out the percentages that each council pays. They reckon they're paying too much. That's the case. If they pay less, someone else pays more. And it's still an ongoing discussion about the business case for the $200 million plus extension of the dam wall. That's due next June. So,
who's the next CEO?
Darryl Wickett.
He's the
was from the District Council of Iran. He's the auditor, so it doesn't surprise me.
That Darryl?
Yeah.
That Darryl. So that's why it's every penny he's looking at.
Yes, he's an
which is, he should be doing CEO duties, not looking at. Anyway.
Thanks, Councillor Herman. Appreciate that.
Darryl's good mate. I'll have a word with him.
CEO, I'll pass it over to you for your report.
Sure. Just one item over the last couple of weeks, just picking up on what I talked about a couple of weeks ago around early bushfire detection pilot. We've managed to get the support of our neighbouring councils, so in principle support from the neighbouring CEOs, which is great. Also Forestry SA are looking at doing a joint application around funding. This is the disaster recovery funding at a federal level, and also local government services, Robin Daly is looking at supporting that as well. And that's one of the motivations of pushing it in Canberra over the next couple of days around hopefully getting funding for that pilot program. Nathan Payne from Forestry SA has already committed Mount Compass and putting a camera on that particular tower, but it would be great about getting some augmentation and additional cameras on other telecommunication towers across the region. Just watch this space and I'll provide more updates as they come available.
Okay, any questions? We'll move on to reports of committees. We do have the CAT meeting from the 10th of June. Councillor Mudge, you're happy to move to receive a note. We have a seconder. Councillor Gladigo. All those in favour to indicate. That is carried unanimously. We then have the CAT meeting from the 17th of June. Councillor Mudge, you're happy to receive a note again. We have a seconder. Councillor Osterstock. All those in favour to indicate. Yeah, that's carried unanimously. Audit and risk from the 17th of June as well. Councillor Herman.
I'll move that. Could I speak briefly to some of the items in there, in case someone's just misreading the audit committee minutes? Item 8.3, the internal audit. The audit and risk committee has a program for doing internal audits on various sections. The internal audit that's just been completed is on the Human Resources Department. They found a few shortcomings in that, and that's been worked through, and the audit committee asked the CEO to identify resources, if any, needed. There were a lot of positive things that the audit brought out as well, but there's a few issues that needed addressing. Legal fees report on 8.7 on page 369. I'm not sure if I bring good news or bad news. The good news is we're less than last year. That's the good news. Probably the not so, or less good news is that we're up to 731,000 is the estimate for this year. So it's probably $11,000 less. I don't know if that incorporated the 130 grand for the justice area. That's probably Radigan, have you got any?
Move the motion.
Talk to.
You have to talk to.
Can I just clarify that point, the 110,000, that wasn't in this year?
Yeah, it's a different financial year.
All the expenses just was referring to relate to previous years?
23, 24, 24, 25.
Yeah. There's none in this year?
Yeah.
Got OTR.
Oh, right, okay. Well, 7:30.
Yes.
You've got
Alright,
those
anyway,
names, we can drop a few more grand in legals.
Thank you.
Anything else? No? Alright, we'll have a seconder. Councillor Glasgow. All those in favour to indicate.
Could I just say one? The draft annual business plan was released before it went to the audit committee, and they have now made their comments, I won't mention them here, to the administration, so they'll be considered on the 9th.
Thank you. Debate closed. All those in favour to indicate. That is carried unanimously. COPRP from the 16th is a little bit later. We have no boundary change committee meeting, so we do have two confidential items. Mr Wilkinson, thank you for coming along tonight. There'll be no more public items, so appreciate you coming along. Thanks. First thing we need to do for 19.1 is to move into confidence. Someone to do that, Councillor Graves. As printed. Councillor Martin. Those on the screen, people, and what's in the minutes, in the agenda. So I'll put the motion, it's just move into confidence.